Sportsline Podcast on the CHCH media platform. I'm your host, Bubba O'Neil. Well, again, the Sportsline Podcast is one where we talk about the good things that are going on in sports and the things that sometimes upset us. And I don't know about you, but there are a lot of people in Western New York and Southern Ontario that are still brewing over the final result of the AFC Championship, with many thinking that this was the year for the Buffalo Bills. But once again, for the fourth time in 5 years, the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. So we're going to break this down because there were so many tentacles that have people talking about this contest. And to do so, let's bring in someone that is very opinionated when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. He's done it for, a good part of the year. We'll touch on reasons why. Scott Radley from the Hamilton Spectator, always appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
You got the couch red in honor of Kansas City?
Well, I would rather not. I admit I wanted the Bills to win, but we'll get into all this. And I think for equity, yes, a little bit of fairness, we'll bring in our good friend, the friendly official, the man down on the field at Highmark Stadium, marking the first down, the chain crew for over 2 decades, Steve Foxcroft from Western New York joins us right now. Stevie, how are you, partner?
I'm good, guys. For the amount of years I've known both of you guys, and we've talked sports with both of you guys on the air, in print, everywhere, I think this is the first time we're doing it, 3 of us together dipping our oars in the water.
Never happened on the radio show?
I don't think so.
Wow, all right.
I don't think so.
All right.
Well, you know what? I don't know if he could do it because it's three big personalities, right? And it's a little bit much for me, but I think we had to do it today.
Sounds like a good. Well, you know what? This guy never would have screwed up that first down or had anything to do with such a screw up as the guys in Kansas City. But I know we're going to get to that.
All right, Chiefs 32, Bills 29, a closely contested contest. Over the last 9 meetings, guys, over these two teams, the Chiefs have outscored the Bills 245 to 240. That's how close these games are constantly being. I think we expected a close game. I thought there was a feeling amongst many Buffalo Bills fans that this was the year, but once again, it's the Chiefs that are going to the Super Bowl. I just don't want your general thoughts on the game, Scott.
When it's that close, one of the things, and look, I think that Sean McDermott has improved dramatically as a coach this year. When they played Kansas City the first time, he took chances that he never took before. But when the games are this close, often you got to give the nod. Kansas City has outcoached the Bills in every one of those playoff losses. Every one of them. Steve Spagnuolo has been better as a defensive coordinator than the Buffalo Bills defense has been. Andy Reid has come up with a better offensive plan than the Bills have come up with. Josh Allen, I would argue, has been generally the better quarterback, but the team around him and the plan has been superior for Kansas City. That, to me, is where the difference lies.
Stevie? Steve, your thoughts?
Many years I've had a theory that you want your defense on the field first. So losing the coin toss, I think that put the Bills behind the 8 ball right away. And the reason for that is everybody is so amped up. On defense, it's easier to overcome being amped up. On offense, you get amped up, you're nervous, you make little miscues. Look at the Bills' first possession, 3 and out. Could have been 2 interceptions on that possession. Josh was nervous at the start. And as Scott alluded to, with coaching and everything like that, 60-minute game, you got to be on point. So, right from the start. So I was worried once the Bills lost the coin toss and had to take the ball first because Kansas City deferred. So put them behind the 8 ball. Kincaid, tough at the end, outcoached, you have to say. Still, no one will convince me that 4th down turnover, and I know we'll talk about that, no one will convince me that wasn't a first down. But video do its job in that case? We'll talk about it.
Well, one more thing. How many games in a row have the Buffalo Bills, and this again comes to me as coaching, how many games in a row did the Buffalo Bills on the opening drive of the game allow the other team to march right down the field unmolested and score an easy touchdown in 3 plays, 4 plays, 5 plays? They are behind every game right off the bat, and it makes no sense because the defense buckles down and tightens things up the rest of the way. But when they come out to start the game, it's like they've not done any game. It feels like they've done no game planning. We're going to see what they're going to do, then we'll adjust. It's unbelievable that you can get behind every single game, it seems. Every single big game.
Well, there is some truth to that. And Steve, you being at a lot of the home games, you understand that one of the Bills' philosophies is to actually defer and have the other team take the ball, and it's always kind of worked out for the Bills because they seem to get a lot of 2-for-1 action where they're able to score at the end of the first half and then generally score to open up the second half. But yeah, this was completely out of their control. But we did, to Scott's truth, we did see the Chiefs just kind of march down the field, and I started to think, oh my goodness, is it going to be a long night?
You know, and it wasn't just off the opening. It seemed like when you watch the game, the Chiefs were a hot knife through butter. And the Bills, everything they did was tough. It was like getting that frozen piece of butter out of the fridge and trying to put it on a dinner roll and spread it. It wasn't a hot knife through butter. Everything the Bills did was physical. Even back to the Baltimore game and the start of the first half of the Denver game, it was physical. But when the Chiefs had the ball, and kind of, I think Scott alluded to it, the play calling, let's face it, Andy Reid is a genius. He called a great game. And it made it look like for Kansas City, when they had the ball and they scored, it was a hot knife through butter.
It's amazing to me that call that the Chiefs came up with on third down to ice the game, that Pierline, who had not touched the ball all game, gets the ball in that situation off a little screenplay, and the game was over. I mean, the first time he's had the ball thrown or given to him as a running back, no one ever expected it. Let's get to what I think has been a national conversation. In fact, I will just basically say that's an international sort of conversation about the Chiefs consistently getting the call. We'll start here. Second quarter, Bills safety Cole Bishop and Chiefs wide receiver Xavier Worthy go up for a 50-50 ball. The refs give the catch to Worthy. The Bills challenge the call. The call of the reception was held up. But I think what everyone was talking about, did the ball hit the carpet? Steve, we'll start with you.
I started by saying that too. I thought the ball hit the ground, and by saying that the ball can hit the ground as long as it doesn't move, I think opens up a huge can of worms that they shouldn't open up at all. The ball hit the ground. You know, refs in the past, they've used that skip mechanic, and even though the ball stayed relatively still, forget about possession and dual possession and all that. I just think right then and there that's an incomplete pass because the ball hit the turf and it can't. Now, remember on the play, there was the holding penalty against the Bills, but we're talking about how it would affect field position in this instance, right? Because if they ruled it incomplete, now we go back, applied the penalty, it would have been 1st and 10. But there's 25 yards of valuable real estate that they got by that play ruled a completion.
Can we bring that picture up again, back in the booth? Can we bring the picture up of that of the catch on the field? Because I want you to look. What helps here to make the decision. So the Bills players are wearing red gloves. All right. The Chiefs player, Worthy, is wearing a white glove, which actually helps because you can see what's going on. The white glove, one of his hands is nowhere near the ball. The other one is sideways. Now, Bubba, here. We can come back here because here we got a football. You actually brought a football in. Perfect. Put your hand sideways. Mm-hmm. Oh. That's not possession right there.
Exactly.
That can't be possession. You cannot hold a ball when your hand is sideways if the ground is not helping. Mm-hmm. And to say that somehow that was possession, there has never, to me, we've seen calls in the NFL all through the year, all through other years, where less of a ground involved touch was turned into a non-call. Mm-hmm. And so this, I'm glad you mentioned narrative and discussion, because coming into this game after the Texans game, all the discussion was not about the Chiefs winning.
No.
It was about the phony hits, the phantom hits on Mahomes and the bad calls and the favoritism. The narrative was the refs are helping the Chiefs. And so to me, you would think if I'm the refs, I don't believe the refs are fixing games. We have no evidence, hard evidence of that. But you got to hear that stuff, which would make me think, okay, we're going to be really conscious of this kind of thing. And yet, how does this not enhance the narrative when a call like this, a 50-50 call that, as Steve says, goes to the booth? Like, it wasn't even the call on the field. It goes to the booth, and a play that in any other game at any other time is nowhere going to be called a catch is somehow ruled that holding the ball sideways against the ground with one hand is it only exacerbates the narrative. And it got worse as the game went on, but it only makes people more believe that something is going on, which doesn't help the league.
Early in the fourth quarter, 4th down and 1, and this is the one that had all kinds of people talking. Initially, a little tush-push action for the Buffalo Bills. It appeared that Josh Allen was able to bull forward for a first down. However, the officials ruled that Allen was just short of what was a 40-yard line and did not gain the first down. It looked odd to us because on one side, you had one official appearing to give Allen the first down, and another official said he was short. The play, again, reviewed. It ended up standing as called turnover of downs for Steve. Again, I always find these very difficult because you have a massive humanity of these giant men here, and you're trying to identify the ball and where it is. And I think there's also something to consider. There's the yellow line that we see on TV that people have to remember is just a part of the TV broadcast. So, and maybe that can go, it's not the official line. So Steve, kind of take it from there on what you saw. You are, and this, I think this is why it's so great to have you here. You are on the field to these situations. You see what happens when you're holding the sticks because you're the one, I guess, lead on the first down chain. What your thoughts here?
So, Bubs, a couple of things is, remember when you and I did 30 years of high school football on the air?
Yes.
I had a remarkable record down to 1 inch of telling you what it was going to be.
You did.
So I do have a knack. Like I said, Bob,
you
it's
did.
half a football first down. Always correct. And I'm not patting myself.
I called it the laser beam vision.
Yeah. So not patting myself on the back for that, but you do have a knack for it, right? The second surge of Josh on that particular play seemingly got him to the line. I kind of think what Gene Steratore, the rules analyst for CBS, said he thought he got it by a third of the football. I don't even think it was a third of the football, but I do think he did get it. And there's a few, like the number one question I get from people that go to games live, except Scott Radley and his son, because they know better. But the number one question I get from people that go to the stadium is, where's the yellow line? Like they're sitting in the stadium looking for the yellow line. I have to explain like you did. No, that's only at home on TV. So there's that. I think he got the first down. I do think the Bills have problems with the tush push. I don't think they execute it properly. I think at that point you have to make it obvious. You can't just get it by an inch or a hair. And I just also think that, ironically, a lot of people reported, Scott included, you included, that they do have the electronic chains available that they may go to. And if there was an air tag in the ball and the electronic chains available, I think that would have proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that that was a first down.
But can you just also explain to us, because you are on the field in these situations, about the proper mechanics for the officials? Who I guess are, I mean, correct me here, the side judges, the two officials on the side, and how they kind of walked. Generally, I believe that the official is walking towards the line of scrimmage and where the ball is, believing that where I'm walking is where the ball should be spotted. But yet we had two on each official from other sides going on different, as I said, different planes. One said, it appeared to say first down, and the other one saying not a first down.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one too, where it's what you see from the side. First of all, the side guys, the down judge and the line judge on either side of the field, I think they're the two toughest positions in all of sports to officiate, because it is so difficult to do all the pre-snap officiating of illegal formations. And then probably you guys would also admit, when it's a false start or an offside, it's almost impossible sometimes to tell who moved first. Or if it's a guard, like a right guard, left guard that flinches, you got to see that from the side. That's very difficult to do. So that's number one. Number two, yes, you do come in with the spot. These guys have advanced through the playoffs just like the team. So it should be the best guys at the position doing these games. So that's what happens. They see the spot. Now they keep coming in. The guy on the top of the screen had more players to look through to try and find the ball. He was the guy that was spotting it a little bit of ahead. The guy on the bottom of the screen who came in, which happened to be the side that Josh went to. Remember, they said he was going left all the time, left all the time. So when he went left, that becomes the primary spot for that official for us at home watching on the bottom of the TV coming in, and he was the one that spotted it back. That's the one they go with as the primary spot. And then I guess, unfortunately for Bills fans, not enough video evidence to support overturning it. Even though, Tony was even drawing with the telestrator that it looked like he may have had a first down.
Scott, I know you're chomping at the bit here. I got one more thing to ask you on a referee sort of mindset, Steve. They also went as far as to show overhead shots where it appeared that two defensive linemen, and this is where you can, because a lot of us are fans of the Canadian Football League, where your defensive linemen have to be 1 yard off the ball. And there was a couple of shots where it looked like the defensive linemen were in what they're calling the neutral zone. Can you help us understand that, please, and what that's all about?
That's just, you can't be the nose of the ball. So we're opposite. In the NFL, it's opposite the CFL. It's the offensive linemen who actually line up back of the ball, right? You see that. And sometimes they even say it's got to be at it can't be any further than the belt line of the center. So that's how they rule it there. So it does allow the defense to creep up, supposed to be right to the nose of the ball. So yes, there is that neutral zone, they call it. And if you get into the neutral zone, that's supposed to be a penalty.
Scott, have at her.
So I actually, one of the curiosities of that play for me was the fact that when Josh Allen goes to the line and tries to push through, he actually turns sideways at the line. Meaning one of the judges has his back, who cannot see the ball because Josh Allen's body is shielding it. The other one has the ball side. The one who has the ball side is the one who rules that he got the first down. The one who can't see the ball is the one who runs in saying he was short. So I actually called a CFL official today and I said, what are the mechanics? Why was it deemed that one guy gets to overrule the other guy? Because when you say, well, video review, you couldn't prove that it was wrong. Except if the call on the field had been with the one guy as opposed to the other guy they chose, the call couldn't have been overturned because there wasn't enough evidence to show that it wasn't a first down. So anyway, the CFL official I talked to said the mechanics are the guy who has the call is the guy with the ball side. The guy who can see the ball is the guy who has the call. Yet in this case, for I don't know why, he was overruled by the guy who shouldn't have had the call. In other words, the proper mechanics would have been the guy who was facing the ball, who ruled it as a first down, should have been the guy whose call on the field stood. Then it would have gone to replay. Then you would have probably ruled there's not incontrovertible evidence, whatever the word is, that it wasn't whatever, it would have stood. So the problem with this was that you have two choices of whose word to take on the field. That determines what the replay is going to be, and they chose the one that favored the Chiefs. The 50-50 call, and again, we go back to 50-50. This is what the narrative has turned into now, that every 50-50 call seems to go, in every big game, seems to go to Kansas City. And it's really hard to go back over the course of this year and find the key 50-50 call that hasn't gone to the Chiefs, which is what is lending to this narrative that something funky is going on. I'm not saying fixing, because the bigger problem to me is I believe the refs on the field have an incredibly tough job. They have to look through bodies. They have to call it live. When it goes to the replay, though, that's where you should have the chance to fix something. And the catch that they said was a catch that shouldn't have been a catch, replay said, nope, that was good. 50-50 goes to the Chiefs. This one, had they chose the right guy, then it would have been a 50-50 to the Bills, but they chose the other guy. 50-50 goes to the Chiefs. This is the narrative. This is what's backing it up.
Well, there was a number of things. We've only just touched on two. We couldn't go through everything. There was, I thought, a couple of times where there was a punt return that the Chiefs had that I thought at least 3 Buffalo Bills had been, hit in the back there, which, we call a clip all the time, and nothing was called. But I'm glad we're looking at it on this. And Steve, I mean, obviously you are working for the Buffalo Bills. You're working for the National Football League. If you don't want to comment on this, I would completely understand. In no way would I want your job in jeopardy or anything like this. But there is a conversation and a question that I feel I have to ask, Scott. I mean, this has been going on in the regular season. We talked about it in the Houston game, about the Chiefs. Like, is there a narrative out there? I mean, does Andy Reid have some type of power? Steve, you could go back into the early days when Don Shula was the head of the competition committee, and they used to say that he always got the benefit of the call. Scott, I mean, this is professional sports. It's not professional wrestling. Do you think there's something funky in Frankfurt?
I can't explain it. And again, we've been on this show before, and I still hold to the position. I don't believe the league has sent out a memo saying get the Chiefs, regardless of the Super Bowl logo controversy, which I'm sure you know about. That yes. 4 of the last 5 Super Bowl logos, which are released at the start of the year, have the colors of the teams that are eventually in it, which is not helping deflect the narrative either, that this is done ahead of time. But no, I don't believe that it's rigged. I don't believe it's set up ahead of time. I don't believe it's WWE. But I also can't explain why seemingly every key 50-50 call does go one way. I can't explain that.
Steve?
How about this, guys? And you mentioned Shula. The one guy you left out with Jeff Fisher with Tennessee, Houston/Tennessee, they were good when he was on the competition committee too. There was some rumblings then too, but how about this one? You never really heard it with the Patriots over the years, right? With Brady for 20 years, kept winning, but you never really heard about it then. It was because they were just good. And I think that's what it boils down to. Good teams make the breaks. Good teams get the breaks. It's because they're good. More so. There's never too much controversy really when it's Tennessee versus Jacksonville or something like that. Like, let's face it, it's always heightened when it comes to the playoffs and that. And I go back to, remember a few years ago, was it New Orleans and the Rams? And there was a missed pass interference call that cost them. And it wasn't about rigged or anything at that point. That was just a missed call. And it happens. And I'll tell you this too, even when it goes to replay and everything like that, the game down low on the field and probably in the booth as well, it gets faster than you think. Like, things happen quickly down there, and it's easy to be a play behind. Or if you think for a second about the play that just happened, you'll miss the next one. And that's just human nature stuff. But in the end, good teams, they win. Good teams make plays. Good teams get the breaks, or it seems they get the breaks because they're good.
Patrick Mahomes, 18 out of 26, 245 yards passing in the AFC Championship. TD pass, 2 touchdown runs, and he fumbled the football. Yet another outstanding performance for him that he leads his offense into a Super Bowl. Now, there has been lots of talk about Patrick Mahomes and where he is climbing to, or is he getting close to the GOAT and Montana and Tom Brady. Now, there was a clip that we had here with Scott talking about Patrick Mahomes in the regular season. Let's roll this clip here.
And I'm sorry if this is going to upset someone. Patrick Mahomes, right now, is the most overrated currently playing athlete in professional sports.
Whoa!
He is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL right now. He is 24th in QB rating. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. If it wasn't for his defense, we talk defense with the Ticats. If it wasn't for the defense and Andy Reid, they would not be close to 7-0. Patrick Mahomes is being carried by this team, not the other way around. I'm sorry. Patrick Mahomes, this talk that he's going to pass Tom Brady, it's never going to happen.
Scott?
Anything there that's wrong? At the time, so during the regular season, he was a middle-of-the-pack quarterback in the NFL this year. Mm-hmm. At best. He was. He did not have a good year. I do believe that you take Steve Spagnuolo out of that Kansas City coaching staff, and Patrick Mahomes probably has one Super Bowl, and they're nowhere near a Super Bowl this year. You take Andy Reid out of that situation, Patrick Mahomes probably doesn't have a Super Bowl and is nowhere near the Super Bowl this year. Patrick Mahomes is a guy who has the benefit of being in a perfect situation. And I don't believe for one moment, and maybe Steve wants to jump in here, I don't believe for one moment that if you were to flop Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and put Allen on Kansas City, or Joe Burrow, or pick 5 or 6 of the top NFL quarterbacks, that they would have any fewer Super Bowl championships than Patrick Mahomes. He is in a perfect spot, and as a result, he gets to enjoy much of this success. He's a good I'm not arguing that he's a bad quarterback, but the idea that he is the GOAT, that he's the greatest of all time, he's not got half of Tom Brady's playoff wins. He's not got half of Tom Brady's Super Bowls. We're so far ahead of this discussion. But it seems that everyone's just
Scott,
dying to have it.
I mean, I know you're saying we're far ahead, but look, he's now number 2 in all those statistics. Only Tom Brady leads those categories, and those are significant categories, and that's where he is now. And believe me, I don't like the blowing up of Mahomes either, but I kind of have to start to respect the guy for what he's doing.
So again, let me ask you a question. It was actually, ironically, the Buffalo Bills who traded the pick to Kansas City that Kansas City used to draft Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes had been drafted by the Buffalo Bills, would the Buffalo Bills have 3 Super Bowls in the last, whatever it is, 5 years and going to another one?
Steve?
I don't think so. I think that things are happening the way they should be. I think Patrick is benefiting from being well coached on both sides of the football, but especially with Andy Reid. I think it's not a Patrick Mahomes discussion as much as it's a Andy Reid discussion.
Agreed.
Because at this point, like you mentioned Spagnuolo too, but on offense, Andy Reid is elite. And I do agree that you could plug 5 to 7 quarterbacks into that system. Like Andy Reid did well with Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb was a decent quarterback. He's kind of like the guy that we were describing. Now, they didn't win Super Bowls, though, and that's why Andy Reid's in Kansas City. But Andy Reid's gotten better, too, over the years. So I think Scott's on to something in terms of GOAT status. He's getting that GOAT status by having the sum of all the parts. And he's not making mistakes. He's doing his job. He's very good. But not even close to Brady, but he's in the mix with everybody else in the discussion.
Well, let me push back a little bit, guys, on this here. We can talk. Look, you cannot take away the flowers for Andy Reid. He's done too much over too long of a time to say that he's middle of the road. He's one of the best coaches we've ever seen. He's in the 300 win category, which I think only 4 men are in. And I mean, that's Brady and Hallis. And Shula. That's exclusive. But as we all know, you can call whatever play you want. The play needs to be, what do we always talk about football? Execution. And that's where Mahomes is executing these plays. And you can't take this away from him.
I don't think any of us are sitting here saying that he is bad. No one is saying he's a bad quarterback. I think what they're saying is the system that he has been presented with has allowed him to have a lot of this success. And Steve and I are both saying it, and I agree. I absolutely believe this, that you could put a number of NFL quarterbacks, a number of them, into that system and have the exact same result. The exact same result. You could not convince me that if Josh Allen had been drafted by Kansas City, if those had been flip-flopped, that Josh Allen would not have just as many Super Bowls right now, or Joe Burrow, or a bunch of the other guys.
How about this, guys? It came down to this: 3:33 to go. Bills have the ball after the kick touchback at their 30-yard line. What if you look at it this way? Andy Reid is calling the plays for Buffalo rather than Joe Brady. because one of the things that was disappointing was like the first play you have Cook gashing them, and then the first play on that drive is a pitch to the short side of the field to Johnson for a loss of 2. Now you're 2nd and 12. You throw the second one incomplete. 3rd down, 5 yards to Cooper, sets up 4th down, and then enter Spagnuolo, who calls up a corner blitz. And I think the Bills there, they got caught worrying about the play they were calling and not considering what Kansas City was going to do defensively. That's how I kind of saw that one shape up. And
it's unfortunate because Shakir was wide open.
Well, and if Kincaid makes that catch, it's one of the greatest catches in playoff history, one of the greatest plays in playoff history, and they're in field goal range, and who knows where this thing goes. So it's, the other funny thing about this whole discussion is, Patrick Mahomes has now beaten Josh Allen 4 straight times. I would argue against that. Josh Allen has actually been at least the equal, if not the better quarterback in most of those games.
Their stats are almost exactly. Even in this game, their statistics were almost exactly on point with each other.
If you swap the Kansas City and Buffalo defense with the coaching of that defense, Buffalo probably wins that game by 25 points. Probably does. Buffalo's defense was indicted. It was an indictment of, I know they were banged up, but the fact that Andy Reid could tear them apart, and this was the first, am I right? The first game all year Kansas City scored 30 points in a playoff game. That's an indictment of the Buffalo defense to me. If Kansas City had consistently been putting up big points all year, I would say, they did it again. But this was the first game they put up 30. That's an indictment of Buffalo's D more than a compliment to Kansas City's offense.
The realities of technology. Steve, we're going to lose you from Western New York in about 30 seconds from now. I got to say thank you so much for joining us. This has been an unbelievable conversation. I mean, maybe we can continue this when the Super Bowl gets, we can figure this out, who we think is going to win and the reasons why. But your expertise, always appreciated, and your opinions always on point. Thank you so much for joining us.
Guys, thanks for having me. Let's keep it rolling.
Right on.
See you, Steve.
Okay, so let's just finish up here with you here, Scott, with this Mahomes sort of narrative right now. At some point, if this continues, he's not an old guy. And if this union, as we saw with Brady and Belichick, which eventually broke up and had a divorce, and we could kind of see that the divorce was coming. I don't sense that with Reid and Mahomes right now.
No, but this is let's go back to the 50-50 thing for a second, because I don't think you can overstate it. I know people say all the time, you can't blame the refs. If you just made enough plays, you take the refs out of it. That's the argument that you have to make. But if you take away that catch and you give the Bills the first down that they got, the catch maybe takes 4 points off the board because they don't get a touchdown. Maybe it's a field goal. Mm-hmm. The Bills go down the field. They did enough to win. Now, their defense, that's despite the fact that their defense was really, really poor. But I don't look at Kansas City. I think this year they were the most blessed team in the history of football. The number of breaks they got what was the team that blew the field goal, blocked the field goal late that was going to win Denver, or the game against Los Angeles where they botched the snap where they were. But
don't we say the good teams win the close games?
But it is statistically almost inconceivable that a team, they've won 17 one-score games in a row. Mm-hmm. That's not going to continue. It's statistically, it is impossible for that to continue. There are going to be, at some point, some breaks that go against them. They've literally had every break this year, whether it's ref breaks, bounce breaks, whatever. They've had every break. They were not a 16-1 team. They were
15-2.
They lost
the last game, but no starters were played that game.
So you're right. So they were not that good. They were a good team, but they were not a historically good team.
I mean, I hear you, but they're 15-2, Scott.
I understand that, but again, you had the fates of football were on their side this year. You cannot expect that as you go through, every 50-50 call will continue to be yours. Every ball will bounce. Every team is going to screw something up against you at key moments. That's not going to happen. I don't believe that this is a team. They may get there this year, although I think the Eagles. I think that Saquon Barkley is going to be a handful. But I just don't see them staying here. I just don't see them staying here.
As a team, are the Chiefs in the pantheon of the Patriots, the Steelers, and the 49ers? Those are the greatest teams, eras of all time.
I think that there will be those who say yes, and they can make a compelling argument for that. But for all the reasons we've talked about at the start of the show with Steve, and I think for many people, there is always going to be a little bit of an asterisk around this team because of so many questionable things that favor them. And whether that's fair or not, the fact that this narrative has taken such deep root in the conversation will always be something that people will say, but now, you could maybe have said that about Tom Brady, but he,
But this is what I'm going to say. I think history has been good to the Patriots because, look, they put a wall between themselves and the National Football League with Deflategate, and of course the stealing signs situation that happened with them. Right? They were in the negative books. They got fined. They lost draft picks. Right? But I don't know if we think about that right now anymore when we talk about the New England Patriots era.
Those who look at them as non-fans do, and those who look at them as fans don't. And right now, outside of Missouri, are there a lot of Kansas City fans, or is everyone saying, no, I'm done with them. I'm tired of this. There is now, go on Twitter, there is a huge amount of people who are with the boycott the Super Bowl hashtag because they say they believe we already know what's going to happen in this game. Last time I was on this show, last week after the Texans game, one of the things I said was if you could find a prop bet that there would be 2 controversial calls in favor of the Chiefs against the Bills, take the over. Make the bet and take the over. And here we are. It happened exactly as called. There will be a controversial call or two in the Super Bowl. And if recent history, what we've seen in the recent weeks happens, they will favor the Chiefs. That's what we've seen happen. And it's not helping the league. And
Come on.
What? It's not helping the league.
The league is as big as it's ever been, and it's making more money than
I believe.
It's the league. This is the only league in sports, maybe the only business in the world that's bulletproof. People just keep coming back. People just keep betting. It just gets bigger and bigger. The TV contracts get bigger and bigger.
But you can't.
The controversies, the drug controversy, it just all goes on, but it just grows like a big mountain.
You've been right so far. You're right so far, but you can't. Let me back for a second. There is a story out there that the way the Super Bowl is going to go is that the Chiefs will win. Travis Kelce is going to propose to Taylor Swift on the field and retire. All right? Here's the problem now. If that were to actually happen, you have now further ensconced that this was preordained, that this was predetermined. It becomes a bigger, and the longer that people start to really believe that stuff is happening that isn't organic, you do get to a point, I don't know where they're yet, but you do start to get to a point where people say, wait a second, how are they able to know this or predict stuff like this in advance? And again, I'm not arguing for rigged, but I'm saying it's a narrative the NFL doesn't want to let grow and take too much root in. They are a league that is driven in massive part by gambling. And if people who are betting on the league start to go, I don't think I should because I'm not fully convinced that this is all on the up and up. If the gamblers start to believe that, you've got a problem. So, look, it has been a bulletproof league. It has been. And the numbers are way up. And, the narrative that this is a thing to make sure that Taylor Swift and her Swifties are tuned into the Super Bowl.
They are watching, though. And they're pulling for the Chiefs. For
now, the minute that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift break up, which is going to happen at some point, it's inevitable.
They look like they're in love, dude.
We'll see. But the second that Taylor Swift is no longer, or he retires, the second she's gone from this, so are the Swifties. I don't believe that you're digging any deep roots with the Swifties. They are there to watch her dance in the booth with Caitlin Clark. And the second she's gone, they're gone. Your concern should be, I think, Is this narrative leading fans, real fans, to have questions? And going solely by social media, which is never a great place to judge much, there is this thought, there is a belief. Dave Portnoy from Barstool, he was on last week saying, I'm done with football. I can't take this anymore. I don't believe it anymore. If that gains real traction, that's where your problem comes. And I don't think that after this year, once the Chiefs get their three-peat, if they do, I don't think the NFL necessarily has a need for them anymore. If your belief is in the narrative, I don't think they would have the need for them. If you believe that this is what's happening, I think this is the end of it. If you don't believe it's happening, maybe they keep getting those bounces.
One of my favorite sayings over the years on this podcast and really just in sports general, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. The only thing I don't like about the booth, actually, I'm actually happy. CBS are only going up there about 3 times now. It was ridiculous. It was about 10 times now. And what I didn't like there is our boy Zach Caleros is in that booth every time now. He's in there again this weekend. And I love Zach.
Zach is, well, after his Super Bowl performance, he may be the yin to the Chiefs' yang.
Great Cup performance.
Great Cup,
You're right. You're right. Get back home there, my friend. Scott, amazing. Just great stuff, great opinions,
all fun.
Great
we'll see.
Great discussions. And you're right. Unless the Eagles blow out the Chiefs in this upcoming Super Bowl, these kind of conversations, and believe me, we're not the only one talking about this kind of stuff right now. It's everywhere.
Do you think the NFL, I know you got to run, but do you think the NFL, even though controversy sells, as you say, which it does, and even though, any publicity is good publicity, do you think the NFL is happy that 80% of the discussion outside of Kansas City, 80% of the discussion going into the Super Bowl is not about the teams, but is about the narrative? I don't think they can be. Maybe they're just happy anyone's talking about it.
I don't think they care.
Maybe.
I don't think they care. I just think they care that, wow, look at our numbers on CBS. Look at our advertisements. How much should we get for a 30-second commercial on for the Super Bowl? I think that's all Mr. Goodell cares about. Because I'll tell you something, that's all the owners care about.
Yeah. No, and you know what? I don't expect that this social media movement to boycott the Super Bowl is going to amount to much. But that would be the only thing that would make them stand up and take note. If suddenly people said, I'm not watching because I believe I know the outcome already. If ratings go down, that's when they pay attention.
Thanks for joining us, Scott. Wow, what a conversation. That's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And if you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports and getting really down and dirty with the conversations of what everyone's talking about. And as I said, controversies. Is the sport rigged? We talked about it all today. Hey, if you know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline podcast, do want to hear from you. Please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you have something to say, maybe on this hot topic, please comment. It always makes me happy when I see these comments for the outstanding people that make the Sportsline podcast possible. Thank you so very much. And we'll see you tomorrow.